Buonasera, einen schönen guten Abend. I wish you a warm welcome for our Rendezvous Goethe from tonight. We are in the Goethe venue. You see behind us the objects of a still running exhibition, In Us We Trust, an exhibition which is related to the pandemic, a kind of reflection of it. And the project we will talk about now, defense mechanism, will have also a certain relationship to the pandemic, but we will talk about this later. The exhibition we will talk about, this defense mechanism, is from next week on, 5th of May, from 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You can come and visit it, and it is a good example of fantastic artistic cooperation between Germany and Romania. That's why we are so many here in Bucharest, 4 persons, and we have also Cristina Vasilescu and naturally the artist Christian. Project which is already running since some months. Christian is an international renowned artist working in different countries and relating, so to say, different fields of society, politics, economy, and other ones, and he is considered as a kind of conceptual artist, I would say. We will talk about it in a minute. I will just quote the names and the other persons who are here present: Irina Radu and Dan Angelescu, who were also part of the curational team, of the preparation team, and naturally Alexandru Bătinaș, who is a clinical psychologist, you said, and you are involved closely to this projects of different fields of society. But first of all, Christian, let me ask you a question. I think it's important that people understand what you are doing before we talk more concretely about defense mechanism. Could you give us 1 or 2 examples of projects you realized in the past? Just to have an idea, please.
Yeah. So I many times work in performance-based work, but the performance always takes the shape also in another media. Like many times it's mass medias like video, film, photography. So for example, I work with other fields also to show another aspect of art, to try to see their viewpoints and also in this way get maybe a different view on artworks and producing art. So I made one work, for example, with weightlifters in Poland, where the national team in Poland was lifting up monuments in public space in Warsaw. So they took bronze sculptures and different sculptures and tried to lift them from the ground. So it's a combination, you can say, with sports and art, and also in a way looking into the history of Warsaw, but also, of course, it had an impact on the relation between Germany and Poland. And of course, there were also war memorials, so it brings a dimension of history and past into it, but tries to have a new perspective on the past, you know, by almost taking the sculptures out of their anchor, out of the place where they usually stand. You automatically look different to them. And we had a famous journalist, a sports journalist, also commenting on this live performances that took place all over Warsaw and various places. I also worked with the Vatican on a project called Casting Jesus. Here we had Vatican members to search for a new interpretation of the Son of God. So in Rome, next to the Vatican, there's a place. It's called it's called Santo Spirito, and it's a former pilgrim hospital. And here, this was a perfect location to get different Italian actors to compete for the role of Jesus. And it's a bit. I took many times, like in my projects, I take media formats that people also know how to decode or think they know how to decode. And And in this way, here it looks like a casting show that you see on television, but these people are not television celebrities, but monsignores from the Vatican.
Produced in a participatory way, so it is always with others, with other players.
Yes, you can say so. So it's quite early on, I was starting as a painter and worked. Yeah, you can say more in a traditional way of making art. But then more and more, I shifted towards new media, like using video, but also really using relationships and using situations as the form to work with. And there, it's always a collaboration, you can say. I never work alone. Yeah.
Yeah, we will see the results next week, and maybe this question will be, I don't know, but I ask it anyway. Where do you start? So do you start by an idea that you have, or just you're going to talk with people about an association and things like this?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's of course, as soon as you start to tell the story, it becomes a legend of how it happens. But in a way, it's of course a part intuition. It's part pressure that I know that I want to do something, or I have to deliver an exhibition for an artwork, for an art exhibition. So I also looked in Bucharest and I visited the military museum, and I thought, after having worked with so many different professions, it's not only others that are informing my work, it's also very specific professional viewpoints. And these professional viewpoints come from different professions that, of course, many people have. And I never worked with soldiers. I worked with customs officers, I worked with magicians, I worked with even the president from Lithuania, but I never worked with soldiers. And somehow that was the starting point, to see the dioramas, the battlefields in the museum in Bucharest, and also thinking about a place where to mix this with another field, to mix military and therapy, and also see a mixture of a healing space and a very dangerous space like a battlefield. I somehow had the feeling that there is something to win. And first I thought about putting up a white flag, and I thought about giving up projects also in therapy or general. If you put up a white flag, you understand why you don't achieve something. That's also, it's a bit like showing your wounds. And showing your wounds, is something that I also admire. And like in artworks, if you also break up a system, show something that is not completely working. And these mechanisms I found interesting. And then came the title Defense Mechanism. And when you have a title, you also get a direction. All of this is many different factors that together start bringing you on one road. And on this road, with the curators, you meet, for example, Alexandru, who was by a colleague recommended for this project. And we had a couple of good talks before. And of course, this also together shapes more and more the possibilities, and it shapes to the project, to the editing process, or making choices which photographs stand as icons for the project.
Yes, the shown artwork will be a film, a document about your action from half an hour around, I think so. But last question before I ask a little bit our other participants. Yes, Christian.
One question. It's a very, if you use the term a document or documentation, I think that's...
No, I just I corrected myself by speaking. It is the artwork, sure. Excuse me.
Exactly. I believe it's an artwork.
Yes.
But I also allow, I think that's also a part of my work. I like if my work is also considered something else in another context. So, for instance, if Alexandru thinks he could use this, or if the military psychologists, or if the military museum thinks they can maybe also use it for different purposes, this is just a winning moment, because I like to consider different audiences looking at the same thing and bringing other stuff and other thoughts and other functions. And I think that's nice. And so that's why I was, just saying, oh, one moment, documented. It can be documented. It could be also maybe a therapeutic video. It can be maybe a commercial to show a soft side from the soldiers, to have people say, oh, the army can't be that bad. Maybe I can join. So it can, maybe also have other functions.
Thanks a lot, Christian. When we met first, you was busy also with a project about therapy. It was the first you exhibited in the gallery Supra Infinite. Yeah, it was about family, if I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. And it also something that happened first as an idea on the way, because first I wanted to do defense mechanism. But since it was very, very difficult to connect with the Romanian military, which was first the goal, later on we shifted towards working with soldiers that were, of course, in the past in the Romanian military, but now are in the private sector. So, back then, this was one of different reasons why this project could not happen with the military. And the idea to make a family constellation and looking into therapy and using my own family, bringing my brother to Romania and working on this large self-representations of my family, this was somehow related, since Alexandru was also the therapist who participated in that project. But really, when you start something, I feel many times when you start digging into one direction, many things come out of the dirt, you can almost say, or out of the earth. And I'm interested, and I get new ideas from one idea. I get the next idea. You can ask the quotes. That's how I call the curatorial group, quote unquote. And they might also have to draw the line somewhere with me, because otherwise I call them back next month to do the next project in Romania.
Yes, you give me the possibility to talk about quote unquote, which is, if I'm not wrong, an independent curatorial unit founded in Bucharest. And I want to ask first to Irina, what are you aiming to? What is do you have a kind of philosophy, strategy, and maybe Dan can also react on this?
Yes, we started this platform in 2020, and we envisioned it as a long-term research that explores public speaking and its components, like voice, language, and its performative part. And we want to do all this by collaborating with other fields, to collaborate with other fields apart from the art, to link the artists with sociologists, psychologists, specialists in social sciences. And this is how we came to work with Christian, because his practice aligns very well with what we're trying to achieve.
So quote unquote is already a little bit the content you are aiming. So quote the society talking expressions. Do you consider yourself, Dan, as a kind of activist? Is it only? Is it looking to art, or also to being socially and engaged?
I think a bit of both. Yeah, we clearly have a social responsibility and we're aware of it. And I think all our projects deal a bit with, educational issues, and just public speaking is everywhere in society. It's all around us. It's on TV. It's, so that's why we wanted to explore it, because it's, in a way, it's an umbrella topic to explore other issues which we find important as well. So,
And we also want to give a voice to the underrepresented groups, such as minorities or various communities that are underrepresented in society right now.
Could you give us an example of another project you're preparing or you had, for instance?
This year, we're doing a series of events that focus on labor and its emotional implications. It's called On Labor and Affect, and we gathered like 6 or 8 artists and artistic collectives that will collaborate with local specialists, educators in exploring this topic that's very present, especially during the pandemic, where the effects of working from home were very various.
Yeah, and maybe will have changed also for the future. So this we don't know yet what.
Exactly, we're still living it, so we don't know what the outcome is, but it's a great field for exploration.
And as well, we have an artist in residence right now, Alicia Janin. She works with as well with activism and exploring speech in politics, and yeah, she will interview people from the local scene around these topics, like how speech shapes politics in Bucharest, especially.
Yeah, very interesting. And are you collaborating in close contact with the Suprafinit Gallery, or you always have contact with other places to exhibit?
We're a bit of a pop-up entity. We don't have a permanent space, but we like to explore around and to not be to depend on one institution or another, but of course we're very happy to collaborate with galleries and public institutions and so on.
And I think, Christina, you're also part of this quote-unquote team, and you are also running and curating the exhibitions in the Suprafinit Gallery. How do you relate this work? Because I suppose you have also other artists, not only artists of this platform. How important is this? Which place does it take?
It's a good question, actually. I work with Suprainfinite as an artistic director, and it's in a way quite different curatorial, I would say quite different curatorial work. At the same time, I like to combine the both, and quote unquote is a discursive platform that also brings artists that work with visual arts, but I think it's very important to keep this discursive level, meaning doing performances and lecture performances and widening the format of cultural events. With Suprainfinite, it's quite a lot of visual art, but at the same time, I always try to push those boundaries of working with objects, and I try to bring discursive elements in the program and do screenings or present more video work, start doing more talks, and I work in both projects, and sometimes it's great even with this exhibition with Christian we did last year to organize it in the space of Suprainfinite, because quote unquote, as Dan said, it's a pop-up project. So for me, it's an exciting balance to have both practices, and very challenging too.
Thanks a lot. I just said it, and we talked about it several times, Christina. I think it's an excellent way how a so-called young gallery can find a place in this mixture between visual arts but also socially engaged art. So we like to work with you because it's interesting, because the social side of arts and social engagement activism will be still stronger the following years, I suppose, and more important. I wanted to ask to Alexandru, because he's the one coming from a very different field, from psychology. How did you come in this project? What was the way you were recruited, so to say?
Sometimes, and even today, I still ask myself, what was the unconscious desire, to be in this project? Because indeed, it is not my field, but in the same time, as a student, I started studying the artist personality, because I wanted to understand better what's happening behind the defense mechanism we call sublimation, and because the artist somehow finds a way to heal his wounds through his arts, and like that we can find an inspiration also in our field. Plus that we tend to be, let's say, quite rigid in our theories and in our practice, and sometimes, we need a breakthrough, and this project pushed my limits. You don't imagine how much. So yeah, it was a little bit difficult, and I think I was a little bit difficult with them also, because I had to respect some boundaries that were essential, but in the same time, there were moments that I said, okay, leave it and let's see where this will go. And I'm quite curious how people from home and people that will come to visit, how they will take this project. Like Christian said, I don't know, maybe it will be a tool of therapy. Maybe I can accommodate it in some kind of a practice. But yeah, I'm here in this project and in the one before, and I want to go into more projects of arts.
It's interesting that you underline also the healing function of arts. I think this is also something we see now in the pandemic, how important culture and art can be as a different way. But please just tell us a little bit concretely what was your role in this setting, because it's a kind of setting, if I understood it good. And yes, we will see the result next week, the artwork about it. But what was your role?
So my role was to invite them in my session.
Them, the military.
The military,
yes,
yeah. In my session room, and to start building something from there. So it was also sometimes even for myself a conflict, because yeah, I was the psychologist, but in the same time I was a participant in an art project. So every time, I had to deal with these two kinds of areas, and what I did was giving voice to some feelings, expressing how would someone would feel with all them surrounding me, and starting building bridges of communication in order for them to open up and to bring something that we did not think. And I must say there were some insights that even myself I didn't think, so yeah, it helped a lot, because they brought a lot of insights.
So it was a kind of group therapy in a nutshell, so to say, yeah, for a limited time, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
How many time did you turn? How many hours was it?
2 hours.
Almost 2 hours. Yeah,
almost 2 hours. Yeah, and did you make a kind of classical therapy sessions, or what were the difference to the normal situation? So
it was different. Imagine having them there in uniform and everything. I was like, even when I entered, I was like, is this my office or your office? Because it was quite an interesting experience. So that's why I think even for myself it was an art project and a new experience. And from there we started going. Yeah, it was not classical at all. Maybe you couldn't imagine that a military and a psychologist could be in the same room and talk about art even. We brought up subject like this. So let's see where this will go.
Yeah, we're looking forward. We are curious to see the result. And it was in Romanian, I suppose.
Yes.
Yes.
And how did you manage to translate for Christian, or was how?
I did this. Yeah, there was a simultaneous translation process. I was in another room receiving the sound, and Christian was in the room with them while it was
Headphones.
filming, and he was, hearing what I was translating. Yeah, hearing back in English.
And there's also, Christian, a famous cameraman who turned the film. Could you tell us something about him, because he isn't here tonight, but we should know about him.
Sometimes it's an art piece in itself. I don't hear you. I didn't hear you, but I just heard famous cameraman. So yes, I was lucky to get Armin Franzen on board of this project. He was an old friend, but also I made a couple of projects with him. And he also, was a great, collaborator on this, because he introduced me to this little Japanese camera. And this is a camera that makes a very distorted and very beautiful and poetic image. And it does not look like documentary, but you are somehow in another, much more abstract reality when you see the footage from there. I mean, if you put some of the video stills on right now, you could maybe have a bit of an idea how this look. I just have some video stills, but it is a larger form of abstraction, which I thought was, or we thought, because it was Armin's idea, and I was very glad with his ideas. He comes normally from doing like commercials, but feature movies. He's really normally in the movie industry, but I had him for a couple of projects, also shooting and working with me on different projects. But it also gives you the notion that you're somewhere still either on the front line, maybe on a battlefield, like between documentation. It's not the look of nowadays. You also almost switch back. It could have been shot 10, 20, 30 years ago, because it's a very rough look, but it gives you, in the same moment, a lot of intimacy when you are there, because you look through the eye of something that is supposed to maybe not record this. It's a bit like a hidden camera, or a journalist who is on the side, that it's quite dangerous, that is maybe a kind of apparatus that is still there, but not for a huge audience, not for a huge public filmed.
It's not an intrusive object in the unfolding of the action, so people feel very comfortable when they see it.
And it's also, on the other hand, for the soldiers. They were, I don't know if it was said yet, they were fully armed soldiers. It was not only soldiers; they were in their complete gear, how they go to fight. And this also, with two people in the room, in the therapy room. It was only me and Armin and me, and we were going there with the small cameras, which I think if we would have taken bigger cameras, would also be a bit too intimate to come too close to their faces with such a big camera. These were small cameras. It was a bit more discreet, but so there, I think we were lucky shooting on this footage, on this material. It's also a bit surprising. You can't completely control the outcome, and there happens some poetic, changes of light and some very beautiful images, to my point of view.
Yes, and in the beginning, and this is also a question for you all, you can think it's a kind of contrary, because we agree that militaries need often therapy, because they live terrible things. But on the other hand, having a psychotherapy is a kind of defeat. It's the biggest defeat a military can have. Still bigger than for, let's say, sometimes normal persons, because this is a kind of doubt of their possibility to function, if you see. Was this also this tension between the image of a military he doesn't hear, Alex. Military and this position of military people towards psychotherapy. One thing which was important for you, and could you feel it also when you talked to the military, that there was kind of stereotypes against it? I don't know what wants to ask.
I think maybe you felt it the most.
Maybe Alexandru, you first.
It was addressed for sure.
They have their own psychologist, and yes, we agreed, and also I talked with Christian, and we agreed to respect their boundaries. And it's better if we build up an art project and not doing like a therapy session, like for real one. So that's why, because even for myself, I'm usually not recorded by someone else, and I'm usually not having so many people around me. So we agreed that we let things to develop and to communicate, and yet they know a lot of things about psychology and therapy.
Here I would just give a question, because I felt it is not for me just an art project, and I felt also I never said we should not take it serious. And I also feel, Alexandru, if you really look at it and if you see it, I think I would like, do you really think that's true? Do you think it's not at all reality, it's not therapy? Because then I would like to know what's missing.
This is a question for Alexandru.
Yes.
I don't know if he understood really the question.
We didn't hear the whole question.
Sorry. So if I understood correctly, you said that we were agreeing on keeping it like an art project and not real therapy, which I find a difficult statement. I think that takes a lot of wind out of the project if you say so. And I would really ask you if you really think so. If that's true.
So if it was therapy, it would be like hidden. It will be like out of the camera, out of the viewers, and it will be like the frame that we talked so much about. Yes, indeed, it is an art project and it involves a therapy session, but we must agree on some boundaries, that yes, we gave all that we had for this, but therapy session is first of all confidential. A therapy session, first of all, is confidential.
So the kind of base of a therapy session wasn't respected, so to say. Okay,
right. I agree with confidentiality, but I think that's also not the only thing that identifies a therapy session. I think if it makes an excuse there, and of course, we don't burn people in front of the camera. We don't want to, show something of their sides that's not, that's too much of a wound. But I think that also we have heard something, and they have opened up. And I think also that a healing space and a therapeutic moment, I think that some of this, of course, with agreement from all parties, can be shown. I don't think that a therapy session is only defined by being secret and never shown to anything else. I don't think that this defines a therapy session.
So we will see next week, and everybody can see by him and herself what this result will be. I invite you already again to come to the opening, not only the opening, but because this will be shown for 10 days. And this, I would like to ask Christina, what is your next project in your gallery?
It's one second to think. Later in the summer, we're doing an exhibition with 3 female artists, it's an exhibition. It's interesting, it's an exhibition with 3 female artists. I don't want it to sound as a statement, but for me, it's very important to look at the female identity through it, and try to deconstruct a bit the expected identity, the expected female identity in society. And in a way, bringing a more fictional aspect to what a female identity could stand for. So it's gonna be different media, and hopefully I'll also organize a series of reading groups with some reading groups, meaning just reading together, a group of people coming in the space and reading together a certain text that will reflect and tackle a bit this topic of female identity, a bit from the post-humanist perspective, and in a way, Donna Haraway is this contemporary philosopher now that writes that we shouldn't, we don't have to make babies, we have to make kin, like connections. But we also have another, now I'm talking about this summer exhibition, we have another exhibition before that with an artist from the 70s, Romanian artist, Ana Lupaș. That it's a more historical exhibition that Susanna is working on right now, and hopefully you'll come to see it.
And Christina, the female exhibition fits perfectly to this project, because it's also about man identity, I think, military identity.
Yeah,
so it's completing it in a fantastic way. Bravo, I have to say. And my last question for Christian would be: you're coming next week. We are glad that you're coming to open your exhibition. And afterwards, you want to do other projects with Romania, Bucharest, or do you have already projects in 10 different other countries?
Yes, I have some projects, but I also would like to go one time back, because I felt in the moment what I said just to Alexandru. I think it stands a little bit up in the air, and sometimes if you talk on the internet like this, it stands a bit strange there. And I really wanted to say my intentions of this was not to say, no, that's not right. And of course, also Alexandru, when he's asked, cannot say everything. And of course, he's a free man. He can say whatever he thinks about. And I want him to be free and say what he thinks. But I know how it is sometimes when you talk about art projects, and we have a chance here to talk about this art project. I heard so many nice things from the soldiers and from Alexandru, that I think if we say in this context, it's either interesting or it's art. It's for me, as looking professionally onto this as an art project, not so stimulating. I mean, for example, just with Alexandru, what I found really strong, and I didn't even feel it while we were doing the therapy session with the soldiers. Alexandru just said a few days ago that it was just such a interesting experience because the soldiers came into it as one organism. There are 5 individuals, but they act as one organism, invading the space, securing the space. Even the way they were answering, they were covered, they had no identity, and sometimes we didn't see them opening their mouth, so we couldn't even tell who's giving the answer to what. So they were ping-ponging the answers almost as one organism together. And Alexandru said that when he makes family therapy or group therapy, that many times for a family it's very hard. He needs a lot of sessions to understand that they're similar, one organism, and not only made out of individuals that only can survive and be as individuals, but they can also be read as a collective. And I found this super touching and beautiful. So, I mean, this was a bit my intention in this question I gave to Alexandru before. I wanted to say this just before answering to your question, because I felt I wanted not to criticize. I wanted more to, to try to make people curious to see the piece and point out what I discovered in this piece.
Thanks a lot, Christian, for these explanations. You're completely right. I think even the militaries were wearing army clothing, if I'm not wrong. So this makes it still more understandable, comprehensible about this organism you talked about. And in this way, your own considerations are very psychological, so to say.
Sorry, you were cut off. I didn't hear your last sentence.
Okay, the sound is back.
Sound is not there?
Yeah.
Now I hear you again. Yes?
Yeah. So I just said, I don't know if you heard me, but I just said in the end, your considerations about the fact that the militaries were a kind of organism is also a psychological consideration and very interesting, so to say.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beauty about art. It's always, it's nice to also see this piece over again and discover something. And I must say, it's so fresh. We are still editing. I still hope that, that there will be, of course, more to gain by watching it. And that's a longer process. It's not only in the performance, it's also when you see the material and live with it for a while. Mm-hmm.
So thanks a lot. We're looking forward the opening of this show, and I hope you are now very curious. I am very curious now. In fact, I apologize a little bit because we had some problems of connection. Maybe there were some sentences you didn't understand. We'll try to make it better next time. So come next week to the opening of the show. All the principal organizers, curators will be here. Alexandru, I hope you will come also to see what is the final product of this. And we will glad to see you next week. Thanks, Christian. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks, Christina. And see you. And have a nice holiday, Easter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
The Romanian Easter. We did it already.
Yeah.